Hey Staten Island, this is Healthwish, a conversation about the state of healthcare in the fabulous 5th borough. Our aim is to raise issues, raise awareness, and raise health. Because when we raise health, we raise everyone.
I'm here today at one of Staten Island's hidden gems, Mimo's Brick Oven Pizzeria. Located in Great Kills, this business has been family owned and operated since 2016. Join me as I sit down in their beautiful party room with Maryann Hayes, founder of Project Juliet, and we discuss her philanthropic work in memory of her daughter. I'm Jamie Lynn Homan, and this is Healthwish. Hi, Maryann.
Hi.
Thank you so much for joining us and for sharing your story. So I want to right away start by having you tell us about your beautiful daughter, Juliet.
Oh, so she was the best. I always say it. I had many jobs, but she was my favorite. I loved being a mom. I took the title very proudly, and she was so much fun. We would play all day long. I had the best 2 years with her. There were times where my husband would come home and he would say, I don't know who's enjoying this more, you or her, because we would play all day long. She loved her family. She knew who belonged to her. She has 3 older siblings that were from my husband's previous marriage that absolutely adored her. She was the baby of the family. So you could imagine how she was our little doll, how she was the light of our lives. Like this, until Juliet came along, the baby of the family was 16 years old. You can imagine the joy that she brought us.
Absolutely, and I never had the privilege of meeting her, but I've seen pictures. She truly was a little doll, and as a new mom myself, I know that those early years are always nerve-wracking. You're always worried about everything, but in September of 2020, you knew that something wasn't right. So tell us what happened.
So the night before everything happened, she started with a low-grade fever. But I didn't think anything of it because she was 2, so I thought maybe her molars were coming in, she was teething. So I was alternating Motrin and Tylenol. And it wasn't until Friday morning, which was the 18th, September 18th, that her fever spiked to 102. So I called a pediatrician, and the pediatrician said to bring her in later on that day. And it started to get worse. She started getting chills, but again, I just thought she was running a fever, something was going, like she was still playing. I mean, the night before with a low-grade fever, she was still dancing in front of the TV, watching Disney movies. Like there were no signs that it was an emergency. And after her progression started to decline and she exploded in her diaper, like I've never seen, and looking back now, I think that's probably when her muscles just started to relax. I got on the phone with the pediatrician and explained what was happening. My husband and my stepdaughters were home and they were cleaning her up while I was on the phone with the doctor. The doctor told me to take her to urgent care, pediatric urgent care immediately to get her tested for COVID. In the meantime, we were cleaning her up. She threw up again. She was still releasing like body fluids, and her eyes started rolling behind her head. And that's when I said, we're not going to urgent care, we're going to the emergency room. And we got to the hospital and they immediately took her. They immediately started running tests. They ran blood tests, urine tests, anything, all the tests that were hospital protocol. And at that point, we didn't know what was going on. She was dancing a few hours ago, like she was fine, like what's happening to my child? She then started seizing, so they put her in an induced coma and started immediately giving her meds. After a couple of hours of running tests, her heart rate started lowering and the meds started wearing off and she seized again. And then that's when she threw up blood. And there was like 20 doctors in the room. It was like something out of a movie. And I still remember thinking, this isn't happening. Like, this isn't real. Like, this isn't what's happening. Like, I'm taking my child home today. After so many tests, they did a spinal tap. And they said that she was going to spend the night, and we were going to go up, and they were going to show us where her and I were going to stay for the night. And so on the way up, they said, we're going to do a CAT scan because there was some protein in the spinal tap, the test. So I said, well, what does that mean? And they said, well, usually it means trauma. Did she fall? And I said, no, she never fell. This is a kid that just never scraped her knees. She wasn't clumsy. She was silly and so much fun, but she wasn't clumsy. And we go upstairs to the pediatric center where she was going to be staying. At that point, my husband and my sister were with me, and it's like 1 o'clock in the morning. And I said, why don't you guys go home, get some rest, and come back so we can switch off in the morning. They're just going to set her up. And I remember waiting, and it was like the longest 20 minutes of my life, waiting for them to come and get me to go back in the room with her. And the doctor came in, and she goes, Ms. Hayes, I just want to tell you what's happening. We found a brain bleed in Juliet. And I just said, what? How? How did this happen? And she said, I don't know, but we don't have the means to take care of her here. So there's a helicopter that's coming to get her, that she's going to be airlifted to Cohen's Hospital.
Right, and that is the point that I think is so important to make. And a lot of people don't realize that we have Sky Health, and that was a pivotal point, I think, in your journey, that she was taken over to Cohen Children's Medical Center, also part of Northwell Health, so that she could get even better care, the care that she really needed, specialized care. Yeah. And then, so what happened after you got to Cohen?
So they told me that I was able to go in the helicopter with her, and then they said I couldn't. When the helicopter arrived, they said that they had to bring too much equipment on board to keep her stable. Because after they had left, the doctor came in the room to talk to me. I was alone, and now I have to relate this message to my husband. So now he flies back to the hospital, and we go to Cohen's. She did really well. They said that she was stable on the helicopter, and she did really well, and everything is okay, and no change in her stability, and we're gonna take care of her here. And at that point, I still felt like my child is coming home. This isn't happening. This is a nightmare. And they ran all kinds of tests at Cohen's. She wasn't stable enough. Her heart rate just kept going lower and lower, and she wasn't stable enough to get an MRI. And the surgeon came in and spoke to us and said, there's too much blood surrounding her brain, so we're gonna have to do a procedure where it's gonna drain the blood out, and if you don't do this, she's not gonna survive. And she did really well, and he said that when things happen to the brain, there's always some type of damage. So we don't know what damage was caused by this, but once we get her to stability, we'll be able to cross that bridge when we get there. And I just remember looking at him saying, I don't care if she's 100% brain dead, I want to bring my daughter home. And she never made it home.
And Maryann, I've heard your story several times, and I just can't imagine the tragedy that your family has gone through. And I also can't imagine that just a few months later, you decided that you had to do something. And you wound up raising over $40,000 in, a month? I want to know what moved you to do that.
So, to be honest, it wasn't my idea. But I wasn't against it. I just wasn't thinking that way at that time. I was so numb for the loss of my child, and I didn't know what to do, but I knew I wanted to continue going. There was just so much more I had to give her, so much more I was looking forward to doing with her. So it was something I had to do to keep her memory alive and to keep her going. My sister works in pre-testing in the hospital, so her department every year collects money to donate to a charity. So that year they wanted to do something in honor of Juliet, maybe dedicating a bench to her or a tree or something that the hospital does. And I think that's when they got in touch with you and said, well, this new building's going up. Why don't we try to see if we can get the bassinet donated? And I remember that conversation. We raised $15,000 in less than 24 hours. And when I called you and said, so what happens when we raise $15,000? You said, well, I wasn't prepared to have this conversation with you so soon. And that's when we raised the stake for the room. And within 4 days, we raised $35,000.
You have some incredible family and friends behind you. Your support system clearly is amazing because you did raise that money so fast. I was not prepared to have that conversation with you, but you were very prepared. You knew that that was going to happen. And
I have an army of family and friends standing behind us. We could not have done it without them. I don't know where we would have been without our family today.
that is so incredible. And so we set up that fundraising page for you. You did raise over the 40,000 mark now, and now you're moving forward and you're raising more money for different causes. We have set up the Juliet Francine Hayes grant at Staten Island University Hospital. So that's going to go fund education and training to identify pediatric neurological diseases. But you have set up a page, projectjuliet.com, so that can also be found on there. You're doing incredible things in Juliet's honor, and so I want to talk about one of those things you're about to do. You have a fundraiser coming up on July 24th. It will be around what would be her 4th birthday. So tell me about the event.
So her birthday is actually July 21st. I hope to continue this every year around her birthday and make it as if it were her birthday party. It's all I got left, and it's something that I want to do because I'm hoping to change lives. No parent should have to go through what we went through. But the generosity of people has just been amazing. The items that we are getting donated, my faith in humanity has just restored with this. Like, it's going to be here at Mimo's. Mimo's is attached to the Max Challenge, which they are donating their room. So we will have people and food and drinks in here, and we'll have all the gifts and games going on next door.
I'm so inspired by you, by the community that surrounds you that has helped you through this. You are doing incredible work in honor of Juliet, in memory of her life. I truly am just in awe of you, to be quite honest. You're doing amazing things. You already have a room named after Juliet in the new Grapuso Family Women and Newborn Center, and you're gonna keep going, and you're gonna do all of this amazing work for research, for education in her name. So I just want you to know that she will always have a place in our hospital, and her name will always be there. And I have to give you a hug. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. I hope that she's looking down on us, and I hope that she's telling all her little angel friends, that's my mom down there.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.